Welcome back to the JB Podcast, and today we're going to talk about the non-controversial 95th Academy Awards and my thoughts on that, plus thoughts on Scream 6. The new Scream film is in theaters. We're going to talk spoilers for that, just to warn you. Going to be a great show today. It's all coming up next on the JB Podcast. So every year, I tune into the Oscars, and last year was fascinating. I actually just missed that Will Smith slap. I wasn't. We're not gonna actually talk too much about it, but I was not present, and I wish I was, because that would have been fascinating to watch. I don't understand what that whole situation. Obviously, Chris Rock had his thoughts on it, but I had to mention it because it happened last year. But we're just going to talk about this year's Academy Awards. Now, I actually enjoyed watching the Academy Awards this year. Wasn't too, some people have problems with, the pace of it, and I thought Jimmy Kimmel did a really good job. And I saw that the ratings went up 12% or something like that this year, so that's good. I think people were interested. And I heard this whole thing that this was a bad Oscars year and, a lot of, there wasn't a great year for movies. I actually disagree. I thought last year was really good for movies. I just don't know if everyone's interested in some of the pictures that came out. Like Everything Everywhere All at Once got a bunch of buzz in March. And, I'll admit I didn't even see it in March. But I heard how good it was, and I was open to seeing it, of course. Directed by the Daniels. They made Swiss Army Man, which is a weird movie, but had some fans. Also had its critics, but Everything Everywhere All at Once was kind of like their real coming out party, obviously, because, the Oscars are, obviously, people see when a certain movie wins awards and they check it out. We're going to get into that, but just to talk about some winners for some of the categories, I'm fine with basically most of them. I disagreed with a few, and this isn't to hate on any of the winners. Hence, we're going to get into the Jamie Lee Curtis. But out of all the films that I saw, I haven't seen all of the Oscar films. I still haven't seen Triangle of Sadness. I still haven't seen some like Living. I hadn't seen all of them, but I had seen the majority of them. I could talk about the winners and some of the categories. For Best Picture, Everything Everywhere All at Once, which basically took over every category. I believe it won 7 times, and I think it was nominated either for 11 or 12, but I believe it won 7 times. It is a movie that I think is now going to get this unfair narrative where when it first came out, everyone's saying, hey, did you see Everything Everywhere All at Once? It's this really great movie. Like, you should check it out. And now it got all this Oscar buzz, and then it was, Ke Huy Quan is in it, Michelle Yeoh, and Jamie Lee Curtis. So everyone's like, wow, this is crazy. The little kid from Indiana Jones is coming in here. That's awesome. And he's really good in the movie, and he totally deserved his Oscar for sure. I guess what shocked me was just how well it did. It did really well, and it didn't shock me in the moment. But like, if you asked me a few months back, what did I think was going to happen? I don't know if I would have guessed that. I do recommend, if you haven't seen it yet, you should check it out. Ben Shapiro had this really dumb comment on Twitter saying no one's going to remember this movie. I disagree completely. People are going to remember this movie. It won 7 Oscars, and it's really good. Was it the best movie I saw last year? No, but it was one of the best movies I saw last year. And I think, you know, I think people just love Top Gun Maverick so much, myself included, that people just assumed the Academy was just going to pick it, or they want to hate on the Academy for not picking it. I'm going to hate on the Academy a little bit too. I thought Top Gun Maverick was the best movie that came out last year. However, I knew in a million years that it was not going to win Best Picture, because I know the Oscars don't like to, make movies like that their Best Picture. And I just thought Everything Everywhere All at Once was original. It was fascinating. It's clever. It had a very low budget, and it does its best with its creativity. You can't even tell that budget's as small as it is. It looks great. So they also won for director. They won for best original screenplay. Things like that, and I believe they also won for costumes. Don't quote me on that, but I do think that this film is a good one. It's really excellent. I do think people are going to remember it. So, Ignore Ben Shapiro said, yes, he does have a point where I believe some best pictures in the last decade are pretty forgettable, but they're still really good films to great films. I don't think you should discount the artists in that way. Like, no need to poo-poo it. If you disagree, you disagree. Say that you disagree, but don't make this weird, mean comment that, like, no one's going to remember it, because you have no idea. There are totally people who are going to be a fan of this movie. I know everybody was talking, and everybody in the movieverse was talking about this film for a long time, even before it got Oscar buzz. Back in March, a lot of people were talking about this film, and I'm really happy that it got all the awards it did. Is it deserving of all of them? We'll get into that. Some of my opinions on the categories, I was fine with most of the categories, but a few that I had an issue with was for Best Supporting Actress, Best Actress, Production Design, Film Score, and I wouldn't say I had a problem with it, but I disagreed on the Best Picture as well. Again, no disrespect to Everything Everywhere All at Once. Totally happy for everybody here. Happy for all the winners. I just would like to get into the things I personally thought, and I think some people would agree with me here. So let's get into Best Supporting Actress. So, notably, I think this was the most controversial one. It was Jamie Lee Curtis who won her first Oscar, her only nomination. She's an icon. She's a legend. She's a horror icon. But honestly, if I'm being real, she's good in Everything Everywhere All at Once. She's not bad or anything. It's not a disgraceful performance. It's not something that I'm like, oh, wow, like, she's really bad in the movie. She's awesome in the movie. She's great. She's not in it a lot. So there's that. And to me, it wasn't like compared to all the other stuff that was going on in that movie, I just disagree. I just don't think she's better than some of the nominees. But, that's just my opinion. To me, Ke Huy Quan was the best part of Everything Everywhere All at Once, also the original screenplay. That was the best to me. Michelle Yeoh is also good. I don't think she deserved Best Actress, but I'm happy she got it. Good for her. I shouldn't say she didn't deserve it. She deserved it, but I disagreed with the ultimate decision. So the nominations for the Academy Award for Best Actress was Angela Bassett, Jamie Lee Curtis, Han Chow, Kerry Condon, and Stephanie Hsu, who's also in Everything Everywhere All at Once. So you knew one of those was probably going to win because there was all this buzz about the film doing really well at the Oscars, and it obviously did. In my opinion, Han Chow for The Whale was the best supporting actress. I thought she was excellent in The Whale. I knew she probably wasn't going to win because The Whale won for makeup, right? I knew since The Whale was not nominated for Best Picture, it probably wasn't going to win too many awards. And since there was already two actresses from the Best Picture um, winner and the rumored winner in Everything Everywhere All at Once, I also would have been cool with Carrie Condon and Angela Bassett. Um, if you look back and you see Jamie Lee Curtis and her win, she's so happy, and you just see how pissed Angela Bassett looks. And honestly, I could see it. She's excellent in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Um, but Han Chow to me was the best performance. She's just so she's just she plays a friend of Brendan Fraser's character, which we'll get into as well, in The Whale, and you could tell she's so strong, but also like just wants to cry the whole movie, and she's just trying to have this tough exterior because of how she was brought up and all this stuff, but she's really like heartbroken that her friend has basically turned himself into this overweight man. To me, Han Chow is the best performance, and Brendan Fraser, I believe, credited her in his speech. And Carrie Condon in Banshees, which Banshees didn't really win for anything, I don't think. I could be missing something. It just seemed like when Banshees came out that Colin Farrell was a lead for best actor. Ended up being Fraser. I knew it was gonna be Fraser, just because of the story behind all of it. He's this guy who kind of disappeared for a while, and now he's back in the fold, doing this small movie with Darren Aronofsky. And as usual with Darren Aronofsky, you're always going to get an amazing performance from that actor. He's going to squeeze every little bit of juice out at you. And Fraser's unbelievable in The Whale. And I know for some people it's going to be, unfortunate. Like I was talking to a few people that believe Austin Butler should have won for Elvis. And if Austin Butler won for Elvis, I would have been totally cool with that. I don't think that would have been a bad or wrong decision. He's freaking great. And for the longest time after I saw Banshees, and Colin Farrell's great in Banshees, but I always thought Austin Butler was better. And I thought, in his film, he's really excellent as Elvis. And I think people are kind of sick of biopics at this point. Like, the Oscars gave the Academy Award to Rami Malek for Freddie Mercury a few years back with Bohemian Rhapsody. And I just think it would have been weird to have another biopic win again. Jamie Foxx also won in a biopic that was beloved as well. I just think with the whole biopic thing is that they're imitating somebody. And Austin Butler did probably the best you could possibly do at doing that. The Whale is based off a stage play. And Fraser adds his own little charms, his own little humor, his own little charisma to it. And I really appreciated that in that role. And I honestly thought it was he was more deserving of it. They also, Oscars love this narrative thing, right? So like it's a big reason why Ke Huy Quan won. And Ke Huy Quan is amazing. So it's not a problem that he won. But I think with Fraser, it was just inevitable. Like, it's just, he was getting standing ovations galore, and the movie itself was pretty good, but he just completely makes that movie go. But we were talking about Jamie Lee Curtis. Han Chow was the reason why I brought that in. But to me, Jamie Lee Curtis, congratulations to her. She was not the best supporting actress, in my opinion, and I think most people agree with that. It's just, I think, she's older. She's a living icon. She's been in Hollywood forever. I think they felt really good. Like, let's give her her Oscar. And I think it was just a situation like that. But nothing. I actually think Jamie Lee Curtis has given better performances in some horror films. She's just really good in Everything Everywhere All at Once, and it was a movie that got Oscar buzz. So there you go. Happy for her, but I don't know if she really deserved it. Best Actress. Here was one I was really on. I knew Michelle Yeoh was going to win. Congratulations to her. No performance to me competed with Cate Blanchett and Tar. Tar itself, I enjoyed. I'll probably not watch it for a very long time. Maybe I'll watch it in a few years to like look back into it. I had some problems with it, mainly with, I think there were interesting plot points that they kind of just skipped over. And what I enjoyed about the film was that they kind of let the audience think for themselves on what to make of the situations that happen with Cate Blanchett's character, her students, all of it. Cate Blanchett is so goddamn good in this movie, and it would have been her third Oscar, which is why I didn't think they were going to give it to her, because Michelle Yeoh and the popularity of Everything Everywhere All at Once, I knew she wasn't going to get it. As the week went on, but it sucks because she's excellent. So I just think Cate Blanchett needed some. Yeah, she obviously gets enough praise as it is, but she's one of the greatest actresses of all time. Maybe argue she's the best. So she's incredible and other stuff, but she was awesome in Tar, and it was a role I hadn't seen from her. So I was happy that she got recognition for it, because it really is a great performance. And if you haven't seen it yet, I recommend it for her performance alone. And then some smaller stuff like the production design. All Quiet on the Western Front won for production design, which is not a bad choice. I personally would have went with Babylon. Now, Babylon, again, I knew it wasn't going to win anything because it was very mixed with critics. Similar to The Whale, right? It's like The Whale was kind of mixed with some critics. I think it has like a 60-something% on Rotten Tomatoes. Babylon was completely split. If you saw Babylon, you would know that it is a very long movie, and it is very much for film lovers, myself included. I freaking love Babylon. It was one of my favorite movies of the year. And as time goes by, I see an audience, the Babylon fans have cheered louder and louder. And so I was hoping Babylon would be recognized, but it did get nominated for some things, but I just was a little disappointed that they couldn't see how unbelievable that movie looked and how gritty and, gross it sometimes was. And, it was one of my favorite movies of the year, and better than some of the Best Picture nominees. So I just want to give a shout out to Babylon there. For film score, I had Banshees over All Quiet. I don't think All Quiet was a bad choice. I think All Quiet won a lot of Oscars, and it's fine. All Quiet's a good movie. I just don't know if it deserved that many Oscars, but The Banshees of Inisherin was a movie that was hyped up, I think, to the point of absurdity. It's really good. I don't know if I'll ever, really want to watch it all the time. I know some people that are more casual moviegoers won't love Banshees. They'll be like, what's the big deal with this movie? Like Carrie Condon, right? She was great. Colin Farrell was great. Brendan Gleeson was great. Barry Keoghan, he was great. The next Joker, right? Him and Phoenix, I guess, are going to be doing it. Their own separate things of that. Excited for that. But it's all really good. And the music was really good, and I was more impressed with that score. Here's the big one, Best Picture. Everything Everywhere All at Once won. Harrison Ford announced it. Was it surprising? Absolutely not. Happy for the film. If we look at the nominees for Best Picture, it was The Banshees of Inisherin. It was Everything Everywhere All at Once. It was Women Talking, which won Best Adapted Screenplay. Just a quick side note. Women Talking I knew was going to win Best Adapted Screenplay. However, if I'm being real, I enjoyed 2, maybe 3 of the other movies more. I believe the other one was Glass Onion. I enjoyed that more. I enjoyed All Quiet on the Western Front, and I enjoyed Top Gun Maverick. Women Talking is really good. It's a movie I'll never watch again in my life. It has excellent performances. You care about what they're talking about. And it's really hard to make a movie that's an hour and 40 minutes keep the viewer's attention when it's just people talking. And there's a moment in the movie, I won't spoil, but there's a moment in the movie where I legitimately gasped. And I loved that the movie wasn't so preachy. It wasn't a men's suck movie, which is, you sometimes will see Hollywood go in that direction. It shows that there are men that can help. There are awful men in this world, but there's also men that are always willing to help, which I really appreciated that. And Rooney Mara is really good in it. Women Talking got no Best Actress nominations, at least I don't think, which is shocking to me. But it's really good, and it won Best Adapted. It deserves it, but I enjoyed Top Gun Maverick more. I enjoyed All Quiet on the Western Front more, and I enjoyed Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery more. So there's my thoughts on Women Talking winning that. Congratulations to them. I don't know if it would have been my pick. But to Best Picture, Women Talking was also nominated for that. Avatar: The Way of Water was also nominated. All Quiet on the Western Front, I believe, was also nominated. I'm just kind of trying to remember these because I don't know if... And The Fabelmans, Triangle of Sadness, Elvis, and Tar. Those were all of them, I believe, right? Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everyone Wants, all that, right? So, I have not seen Triangle of Sadness, so I don't know about Triangle of Sadness. I have seen everything else. Enjoyed pretty much everything on here. Yeah, I enjoyed everything. Elvis, I thought, had no chance. So Elvis not winning anything was interesting, because I actually think it had a case for editing, but Everything Everywhere All at Once, their editing was so perfect that you couldn't possibly choose Elvis. I remember watching Elvis, though, for the first time being like, wow, this could win Best Editing. And then I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once. So, yeah. Top Gun Maverick was the best movie I saw last year. And I'm not just saying that to go on the bandwagon. I had no anticipation for Top Gun Maverick. I have no connection to the original Top Gun. I think the original Top Gun is fine. Tom Cruise is awesome in this movie, right? Glenn Powell, awesome in this movie. And Miles Teller is awesome in this movie. I would have liked to have seen some nominations towards them, but the Academy doesn't like movies like Top Gun Maverick, big blockbusters, really in their Academy Awards, which is frustrating. It's annoying. They've only recently been giving some love to comic book movies. Look at The Batman. I thought The Batman was one of the best movies I saw last year. Nothing for them, right? It had the best cinematography, in my opinion. It did not win best cinematography. That's another situation. I believe it was nominated for best cinematography. But just to go back to, some of these performances, like there are some really good movies out there that did not get any recognition, which is usually the case every year, if we're being honest. So, oh, my mistake. It was not best cinematography, so that's a big snub. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's right. So, and All Quiet won, which, is annoying. Even though the cinematography in that movie is great. I just would have preferred The Batman. But ultimately, the Academy is going to choose the movie that's a little smaller, and that's cool, right? But Top Gun Maverick saved movie theaters. Avatar: The Way of Water was a fun experience. There was no way it was going to win Best Picture, although I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than some of the movies that were nominated for Best Picture. So, Top Gun Maverick, like I said, I think most people agree, was the best movie I saw. It was not going to win, and it should have won. But since the Oscars don't like to make movies like that win, it didn't win. But I think it's worth pointing out that Top Gun Maverick's that good. And if you haven't seen it, you should see it. And if they're still playing at a theater screening, check it out because it's great in theaters. I think they sent it back to theaters in December. I don't know if they're even doing that again, but it's excellent. And if you haven't seen the first Top Gun, I think you should watch it. And it's a million times better than the original Top Gun. I like the original Top Gun, but Top Gun Maverick is at a whole nother level. So I honestly thought the Oscars went well, and I just want to get my thoughts out on it first. Congratulations to everyone involved in Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's a great movie, and I promise you people are going to remember it no matter what frauds like Ben Shapiro say. So, coming up next, we're going to talk about a new movie that came out, which was number 10 on my most anticipated list of films that came out or that are going to come out this year. As of now, there's also some honorable mentions. We're also going to get into one of the honorable mentions, which is a great film. We're going to get that to another episode. But the film that I'm talking about is Scream 6. Scream is my favorite horror franchise. I actually think it's the best horror franchise because it's the most consistent, especially in the slasher genre. It's the most consistent. I think you can find enjoyment in every single Scream film that has been released. Scream 3 is the weakest. It doesn't mean it's terrible, though. If you watch Scream 3, you'll be like, I had fun with that. It's just not as good as the others. Scream 3 got a lot of hate at the time because of, Columbine had came out that, had happened recently. So if you notice, a lot of the violence in Scream 3 is cut short. There's literally a scene where a kill is like someone's stabbed, and then in a second they're just not. In a second they're just dead, and the blood on their face looks like makeup, and it doesn't look real. Like there's moments like that. There's moments where Dewey gets hit in the face with a knife, and it just coincidentally hits him in the head like that. I don't know, just stuff like that. Going back into the house and reading it, why. Like, there's just some dumb stuff in Scream 3. But it's still entertaining, and it's still fun to watch. There's the whole thing with Sydney and her mom that you couldn't care less about. There's problems I have with Scream 3. However, it is enjoyable. And it's better than maybe some people say. Scream 2, I actually think is underrated. I'd have to rewatch all of them to give you a full ranking on them, but this is just my love for the Scream franchise. I watch Scream pretty much every year. I even Google the scenes every once in a while to watch the scenes because I love it so much. But my top 10 most anticipated movies of the year, here they are. Scream 6 was number 10. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is number 9. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is number 8. B.O. is Afraid, by the Ari Aster film. That's number 7. Mission Impossible 7, number 6. Indiana Jones 5, number 5. The Holdovers, which is a film written and directed. I don't know if it's written, actually. It's directed by Alexander Payne. Alexander Payne has made one of my favorite movies of all time, Sideways. So he hasn't made a movie in a long time. So I'm really excited for The Holdovers. The Killer, David Fincher's new film with Michael Fassbender, comes out this year, I believe. Killers of the Flower Moon, Scorsese, Leo is number 2. And then Oppenheimer, or Oppenheimer, I'm actually not even sure. That's Christopher Nolan's new movie. That's why I'm there for that, starring Cillian Murphy. But we're going to talk about Scream 6. Scream 6... I was so excited for because I enjoyed Scream 5. And I recently watched Scream 5 again, and I liked it even more. It's on the level of the better Scream sequels. Scream 2, the better Scream sequels are Scream 2, 4, and 5. And I can tell you that we can add 6 to that because 6 is awesome. It takes place in New York, which I immediately loved because I thought they had to do something different. They did LA, they did college, they did Woodsboro twice, 3 times. Sorry, they've done Woodsboro 3 times. So enough of Woodsboro. We don't need to see Woodsboro again. Nev Campbell is not in this movie due to contract negotiations. I don't know what went on in those meetings. I do know that Nev Campbell loves this movie. She said it was really good. I'm of the opinion that Nev Campbell was upset that she wasn't paid enough, basically. I'm of the opinion that the writers just didn't want to include so much of Sidney Prescott in this movie, if at all. And because of that, they weren't going to offer her as much money as maybe the last few movies. And because of that, it just made sense for her not to even be in it. So I actually think it was better for Scream 6 that Nev Campbell was not in it, even though Nev Campbell is my favorite Scream Queen. And she's one of my favorite female protagonists in any movie. Sidney Prescott is just such a great, awesome character and awesome, great performance. She's just great in every movie. But Scream 6, I thought, needed to kind of get away from that. And Gale, spoilers if you haven't seen Scream 5, Dewey's dead. I thought they handled that pretty well in Scream 5. It might have been a tiny bit like, that's a bummer. Like, why did you look at the phone for a second? Just shoot Ghostface in the head. But it's fine. Didn't bother me that much. But Dewey's not in this, obviously. So Gale's alone. And it's cool to see Gale. And Gale's better in this movie than she was in the last one. In the last one, she kind of just felt like an older character showing up. In this one, she has more to do. She has that Gale Weathers, those Gale Weathers characteristics, being too nosy, that whole reporter thing. And she's really good. She's awesome. It's the best I've seen Courtney Cox in a while. She's excellent in the chase sequences. And this new cast is really shined in this one to me, because the last one, I think I maybe just had to get used to it a little bit more. Even though I did like them, I was like, oh, they're giving good performances, but their characters to me were really likable in this movie. And like when things happen to them, I was honestly like, sad. Like, there's a moment, and I warned you at the beginning, we're going to talk spoilers, but Chad, played by Mason Gooding, there's a moment, him and Tara Carpenter, played by Jenna Ortega, who's also great, they have several moments in this movie where you're like, oh, I want to see them get together, and they finally kiss. It also looked weird when they kiss, because, like, Jenna Ortega's, like, 3'8", at least that's what it looks like, so it looks weird, but there's a moment where Chad gets stabbed multiple times and Tara has to watch it, and it's really effective. And I didn't want him to die. And honestly, I was happy that he survived. It seems like he's going to be like the new Dewey. You know what I mean? Just this kind of this goofy guy, but he's funny and, likable. And, that's a high standard because Dewey's fun. He's a little goofy in the first one, but you know what I mean? That whole character gets better in general as the movies go on. And it just seems like that's what they're going to make Chad. And I really like that. I thought Chad was great. Melissa Barrera, plays Sam Carpenter, is awesome in this movie. Her character's really interesting because of this whole internet leak. They all think that she is the one that killed Jack Quaid, the first Richie, who was the killer in the I was about to say the first one in Scream 5. A lot of people were wondering that Samara Weaving was going to be the killer in this movie. She obviously has a relationship with the filmmakers. She did Ready or Not with them. Tony Revolt, I can't say his name, Revolori, I'm not sure, but you'll recognize him from Grand Budapest Hotel and the recent Spider-Man films. I thought they were going to be the killers. I didn't know if I thought they were these huge names, and not huge names, but like, bigger names that I thought they could be the killers. And Samara Weaving gets killed in the opening scenes, which is awesome to watch. It's really exhilarating and exciting. And then Tony, we'll call him Tony. He takes off the mask, and he's the killer. he just killed his film professor. And you find out that he has this roommate that they do it with, and it's weird, but then he gets killed by the real Ghostface. And that was a very interesting direction to take a Scream film. I hadn't seen a Scream movie like that before. I wonder if in the future they will go all the way with that route. I don't know how it will work, but it just seems like they really need to do something a little bit even more different for the next movie, because they're going to make another one. This is the highest grossing opening weekend for a Scream movie in the franchise. It's the sixth one. That's a big deal and a huge compliment, especially since Wes Craven passed, 10 years ago about. Scream 4 did not do that well. It's a big reason why they didn't make another Scream movie for the longest time. And I think there was that fan base that was so hungry and wanted another Scream movie and liked Scream 4 better as the years went on, and that's how you got Scream 5. Jasmine Savoy Brown. If I get these names wrong, I'm sorry, but she plays Mindy. She's great in this. She was good, I thought, in last year's, but I also saw her as kind of like a rip-off Richie. Not Richie, rip-off Randy. Who's one of my favorite characters, and she's related to Randy, so that makes sense. But she's awesome here in this, and she has a brutal, she has a great scene in a subway, and it's one of the most suspenseful scenes in the movie. Hayden Panettiere is back, which, thank God. I've always said and always wondered that, did Kirby really die in Scream 4? Because it shows that they don't really show it. And I'm glad Wes Craven left that door open, because Kirby's an awesome character. She was awesome in Scream 4. She was easily the best of the new characters in Scream 4. If you look at the new characters in Scream 4, they're pretty terrible, except for her, which is awesome to see that she's back. You see Skeet Ulrich back in this movie. Skeet Ulrich, my boy, rip off Johnny Depp. Like, this guy, this guy is so fun to watch play this character. And last year I was a little, because it's a shock, he's obviously in Sam's head, being in her head and all, and that's why she's taking all these medications, she's going to therapy and all that, but like, just seeing him just like be this kind of fucked up father figure talking to Sam, like, you could do it, like, it's just in your blood, you gotta slit some throats here, like, that stuff is crazy, but it's super entertaining. And I don't, and the first time I saw it, I didn't know if they fully pulled it off, but I even loved it more the second time I saw Scream 5. Coming into Scream 6, I didn't know if they were going to do that again, and they did. He's back in it, and it's really fun to see him again. Dermot Mulroney is the cop. I believe he's also in Friends. He plays kind of a dick in Friends. I forget his character. But he dates, Rachel for a little bit. That's what I recognized him from. You find out he's the killer. And I didn't see that coming. I just didn't see it coming. And you found out his two kids, played by Jack Champion and Liana Liberato, they're the killers in this film. And I was blown away, because I didn't see it. I didn't see it coming at all. They make you think Kirby's gonna be the killer, which ends up not being true. I didn't know if I fully believed that, but I knew there was, most likely I knew she wasn't going to be the killer. But it was interesting. I was like, for a second, because it made sense. Like, the cop saying this, and you're like, oh my god, like, that does make sense. Like, maybe she is the killer. And then she's not, which is nice to see, because that would have ruined Kirby. I was like, how are they going to pull that off? Like, this is all the stuff you're thinking about. I legitimately had no idea what the killers were. And specifically to for Quinn Bailey, that's the character's name, Liana Liberato. You see her, you think you see her die. Quote. I say that with rabbit ears, with bunny ears. Like, you see her die in the beginning of the movie, so you completely forget about her. And then you find out, oh, they faked her death, and there's actually 3 ghost faces. So instead of 2, instead of 1, there's 3 ghost faces, and that was interesting. The unfortunate part was I found the characters a little bit underwhelming. Like, there's a moment where they're unmasking at the end, and Sam is like, who are you? And you find out they basically are suspecting Jack Champion the whole time. Jack Champion plays Ethan Landry. By the way, he looks like Josh Giddey for the Oklahoma City Thunder, in case you didn't know. That's what I thought it was. So Josh Giddey. We're just going to call him Josh Giddey from now on. So when Josh Giddey... okay, no, not seriously. Jack Champion, his character is suspected basically the entire film that he's the killer. He misses class. He says he has class when certain things happen, and he's suspected the whole time basically. But there's a scene where he's in the subway, right, with Mindy, and you think, oh, maybe he's not, or maybe he is, or you have no idea. Also, some of the Ghostface have different masks because of the previous killers. They use masks from the previous killers. Like Billy, Stu, Mrs. Loomis, right, and all these other killers. Forgetting some of their names. But I think the appeal to the Scream 6 reveals are that you don't see them coming, because I didn't see them coming, which I liked. What I didn't like was eventually the characters. I thought they were kind of wimpy. I just didn't fully believe them as these guys who are killing people like this, because they're kind of geeky, nerdy, kids. And then there's the grown-up dad and all, which I caught. I remember, because he's obviously the guy who's in the little supermarket in New York City, the thing that's shown in the trailers, the whole scene that's shown in the trailers. It's very suspenseful, and it's excellent. And the use of sound, the tension is just great. And he's shooting people. Ghostface is shooting people. We see Ghostface use a shotgun. And I remember thinking, I was like, so usually the killers in these movies are all teenagers. So I just didn't pick up that, oh yeah, this Ghostface is shooting a shotgun. How does he know how to shoot a shotgun? Like, with teenagers, I don't think all teenagers know how to, like, really shoot a shotgun well. You know what I mean? And it's in New York City, and, I was just really shocked to see that. And I was like, Ghostface using a gun? Oh, it makes sense, because you find out that he's a cop. That the Ghostface is the cop. And the whole thing is that the dad and his 2 kids, right? One's a daughter and one's a son. He had a third son. That third son was Richie, the killer in Scream 5. They're trying to avenge his death. And I was a little let down at the fact that that's basically what they do in Scream 2, right? Mrs. Loomis is pissed off at Sidney for killing Billy. And I was a little upset about it, but we hadn't seen, like, the full family do something like that. So it's original in a way, but you can also look back, they're kind of repeating tropes, right? Scream 5. Well, who's the killer at the end? It's a random crazy person, Stu, right? Ends up being the girl in that, forgetting her name. Amber, whoever played Amber. The Once Upon a Time in Hollywood girl who gets fried by Leo. That's who plays her. But, Jack Quaid plays the boyfriend. And the whole time, they're kind of looking at him like, hey, you the killer? Are you the killer? Or this? You're the killer, right? And you're surprised that he's the killer. But in the end, it's the same thing they did with Scream in the original Scream. And I looked at Scream 5 as the Force Awakens of the franchise. They wanted to bring you back into this world, what it felt like, and all this. And they kind of do a lot of the same things. They even quote some of the Disney Star Wars movies. Like, not quote them literally, like lines from the movie, but like they mention them. And it's kind of like what they're doing here. The Last Jedi has moments of Return of the Jedi in them, which Scream 6 is moments of Scream 2. And you kind of got to do that with long movie franchises like this. I just hope in Scream 7 they do something a little bit differently. And we'll see. I'm cool with them staying in New York. I would love to see more New York stuff because they use New York really well in this movie. I was really happy to see Scream 6 was very good. Is it the best Scream sequel? I'd have to rewatch all of them. I really liked Scream 5 a lot now after rewatching that. I haven't seen Scream 4 in a few years, and I haven't seen Scream 2 in a few years. I just know they're better than Scream 3. They're better than Scream 3. And none of them are better than the original. The original Scream is one of the great horror movies in the last 40 years. It wasn't really supposed to be, but it was. It's really great. I do recommend seeing it if you're a horror fan. It's if you can see it with a crowd, please do. It's awesome. And I forgot to give him credit. Roger L. Jackson, still great as Ghostface. Ghostface is he's so much more menacing in these newer movies, which I love. You could look at some things like what they did in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, right? Where they don't make a movie for a long time, and throughout that time, he's kind of perceived as this superhero, this flawless human being. So they try to make him, he's not vulnerable. So you can do that with a person like Ghostface, who's a killer, right? You could do that with that character. You can make him awesome because in the first few movies, he's great, but he's also like kind of goofy. Like, you know what I mean? Like he gets hit in certain places, he's slipping a lot. Like in these new movies, he cuts deep, and he's awesome. Like with his words, with his dialogue, and there's a great moment where Gale Weathers puts him on hold, which was hilarious, made my whole theater laugh. And Ghostface is great, and you can't make a really good Scream movie, I think, anymore if Ghostface isn't great. He's great. He's, in my opinion, he's on that Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees level. And guess what? His movies are better. Like, his movies are better. I don't think any of the Scream films, I don't think any of the Scream sequels or anything are on the level of the first Halloween or anything but they're all better than the Friday the 13th movies, in my opinion. And they're all, and also Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger and all that stuff, right? They're all on that same level. Pinhead, all on that same level. Ghostface is freaking great in this movie, and he's worth seeing it alone for just that reason. He's entertaining as hell. So I recommend seeing Scream 6. You could say I'm fanboying, but a lot of people seem to really enjoy this movie. It got a B+ to Cinema Score, which is basically like, Cinema Score is kind of crap anyway, but like they basically, every Scream movie has not gotten above a B+, because I think there is a certain population that doesn't understand the significance of the Scream movies, that they're making fun of the genre, and that they're doing it's a comedy in some ways. It's funny too. So they're a little put off by that. It's not like, it doesn't take itself so seriously, right? You're not supposed to take it seriously, and I think there's a certain group that ends up taking it seriously. So I think that's why you'll see the Cinema Score like that. But in the end, Scream 6 was awesome, and that's all I wanted. It was, again, one of my top 10 most anticipated for the year. I was really happy with it, and that's pretty much my thoughts on that and the Oscars. So next podcast, I'm going to talk about some NBA stuff, because we're getting into that latter half of the season. The season's almost over, and I want to summarize each team before the regular season ends and then before the playoffs. So thank you for listening to the JB podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. A lot of movie stuff today, a lot of Oscars, and some one of the new horror films out there. So have a good one, guys. Thank you for listening to the JB podcast. I'll see you guys next time.